Hello, everybody. This is another podcast episode from Asia PMO Transform Your Organization. Today, with our amazing guest from Christina Tan. Hello, Christina. Can you please introduce yourself?
Hi, Carsten. Thank you so much for this opportunity to work with you on this podcast. I'm Christina, the founder of Sales Symphony, a sales training, coaching, and advisory firm. So, for the last 20 over years, I have been muchly in tech sales, and I have pivoted to be an entrepreneur running this training and coaching advisory firm because I believe that sales can always be better. And one thing that we could all control are actually our skill sets, disregarding of whether the economy is moving, because skills are what you own and you can port over in your entire career or your business. So that's where I am now.
Good. Great to have you here. So let's talk a little bit. Where is sales transforming and what challenges do we see nowadays? So, what challenges do you see nowadays in companies and why?
I would break it up to those that are, for decades are always changing. So I don't call that trends, but volatility of the economy is always a constant, right? There are a lot of things out of your control with the recent wars and governmental regulations. They're always changing. The economy is dynamic, so volatility of the economy. The other is rapid technological evolution with generative AI, SaaS platform, etc. That's coming up. The market need to maneuver. So you need to know how to market, whether at the e-commerce space or at the SaaS platform. The other is the speed of adoption. So we could say that during the pandemic period, right, when companies do not pivot, and it's a great challenge for them to start revamping, and that's why a lot of businesses have to cease operation. And even for big ones, they have to restructure or right size it. So the selling style, whether it's online, so of course, for the space of B2C, we could see like TikTok Live, Shopee Live has really transformed the sales arena. And of course, from the B2B, the CapEx versus OpEx are also changing the way people are not using owning equipment, for example, even kitchen as shared resources, crowdfunding, etc. So the speed of adoption. The fourth point is the steep competition, which is always evolving, right? New players will come in, spin off from companies. Price and service competition. Of course, service level or service excellence is something that you are expert in. So if they don't compete against price, then they will compete against service level. And keeping up the pace itself is really very challenging. And because of all this competition, that also comes to point five, which is rising costs of operation, where salary need to be adjusted to keep talents, inflation, cost of materials. When the market opens, things are moving at very high speed in terms of how you operate it, the cost structure. And of course, next is talent crunch, right? Whether you like it or not, with generative AI and all that, new technology expertise are involving, even marketing teams have to pivot to digital marketing, and that is indirect or direct impact on the sales. And of course, fundamentally, because of all these challenges that we mentioned earlier that impact sales, would be also the lack or inconsistent quality of leads in the sales funnel. And constant lead generation has always been a struggle. And of course, if the company does not have the competency or the sales team are not well equipped, then the deal closure rate may be low amidst all this turbulence. This is what I've summed up.
Yeah.
Maybe you have
So
more
if
to
we
add.
go a little bit more deep inside, you mentioned it's easier now for competitors to come up. I mean, we don't have a lot of big dominant companies anymore, and startups can also really get into. On the other hand, you have the rising cost of operation, but also the current ones. I mean, normally the small companies they win often because they are leaner. So is
Yeah.
it a problem that old sales structures are not getting leaner fast enough? right? Because I don't really see a rising cost of sales from an outside point of view, because your competitors with a smaller team or with a smaller structure come in and can do almost the same sales like established companies. So how do you see that? Are there any industries making a mistake because they don't structure their sales teams very well?
Okay, I wouldn't say that is a mistake. It is just a progressive thing, right? So if you are an MNC, you already have employed a team of sales, right? Who has grown with the company over 1, 2, or 3 decades, and you know their pay is also not going to be low, right? Because they are senior sales. And that's
Yeah,
where
but
you
you
have
can,
started.
you can also fire your team and hire a junior sales. I mean, sorry, that's not, I mean, if you keep with your old salespeople and you see their senior sales and they're expensive, I mean, we are also in a hire and fire age, right? That's not a thing. This
Yes.
is this is
But
also, I mean, if you have very advanced people who don't sell anymore because they cannot keep up with the new technology, why I have to pay them a lot of money? I would diversify my sales deal at least, right?
okay, so there are some MNCs I have spoken to.
Yeah.
There are certain policies that does not make firing easy. Yeah.
I
So it is not so straightforward, right? They have their own culture and branding. And of course, I'm not saying that the salespeople are not productive, but because there is also a calculated risk if you take away the senior sales and then the relationship is not there. But in terms of overall productivity, they may not be as good as they used to. And of course, customers may change and a competitor may come in and take in the account. So the startups from the tech sales perspective is they will have more innovation, where the bigger guys will have challenges, coping with it, like the Silicon Valley startups, for example. And of
Mhm.
course, there's what I mentioned, the traditional tech sales, which is still, you still need a hybrid of on-premise. But if it's going on the cloud, some of the sales team are still trying to adjust the go-to-market strategy. The way of selling is slightly different, not say difficult, but the adjustment, the mindset change, learning new things is hampering the speed, and that is, time is cost in the sales environment, right? So that is it's a real problem. And I'm speaking from the fact that I actually speak to actual company. I'm not looking at just data that's collected at a global scale. That's why I said it's a sensing that I feel from the market. Yes.
You feel that the sales teams are changing, or what do you feel? Sorry.
No, they tell the company tell me the pain points. Like these are real issues they're trying to
Mm,
overcome.
mm,
Yeah.
okay. So when you see companies like that who have issues with their sales or who have problems with competitors or cannot keep up with the market anymore in the sales structure, how does your orchestrator methodology helps them?
So while I was, as I mentioned earlier, is that the economy can change, technology can change. I think it's like equipping the sales team with a more systematic and holistic sales approach is something that we can control.
What does that
So
mean, holistic? I mean, we talk a little bit now, very difficult terms for our audience. Can you make a very simple example? What is a holistic sales term
okay,
or
so for example, sometimes we equip our sales team with negotiation skills, right?
okay.
But actually, negotiation can be prevented if you start with right strategy, meaning to say that you come a market where pricing is not as sensitive. Price will always be an issue. Now, the question is, why is it that the top ranked cars are still doing so well or stable, right? Because they go to a market where customers would not haggle with like a few thousand or even 10,000s of dollars in price difference because they are strong differentiator. So if you look at the strategy part, look into the right market to target. Like for example, my program is not exactly in the low tier, right? So, but then I have got customers who are willing to invest. Then of course there are tiers where every dollar counts. So the strategy part, like your go-to market, who you're going to target, is going to affect the downstream of your sales process. The second part about handling
Downstream of
rejection.
sales process means what? What means
So once
downstream?
you get the lead, you have to follow up, you have to qualify, and then you have to close. That is called the downstream of sales, right? So then, of course, the next question we have, like going to sales classes about rejection. The question again falls back on strategy. How do you manage or reduce rejection even before they come? Which is how you pitch, how you position, how you differentiate, how you sell the value, which all these things could be more systematically constructed before you even start the sales process. That's what I mean by holistic. And of course, it's the mindset. And salespeople has to be dynamic. They have to be very open and have a growth mindset. The attitude has to be positive, right? So that's what I mean is that it starts from the mind. It starts from how you feel, how you think, whether you are passionate in what you do, you believe in and convicted with the product, services, and the solution that you bring to the market. And then, of course, who do you talk to? Who do you reach out to? And how do you reach out to? So then, of course, if I go to the 4S framework, which later on I will give the website link for the audience if they want to find out more details.
We have the
We'll start
website link in all the material. No worries. We don't have
Yeah,
to.
great.
We have
But
the
there is a
website link
tab
available.
specifically is on the solution.
But I mean, you mentioned a very important point. I mean, salespeople have to be positive. I know a lot of salespeople. I mean, and for a normal person, when you meet salesperson, you always think they're almost on drugs, right? I mean, they're so hyped, they're so positive, they're crazy people, they have so attitude, I don't see a problem. But I see a lot of problems nowadays that how can a company really get their salespeople identified with their products? Because honestly speaking, products are getting more and more boring, right? It's tech, it's always a new feature. I mean, I don't know how people sell an iPhone 15 versus an iPhone 16 because I don't see any difference. And I don't know how you can convince me to pay for another feature of iPhone, which another $1,000, right? So how in your methodology or in your holistic approach do you make sure that salespeople understand the product, but they also really are really go for the product. They are fans of the product.
So that is where strategy comes in. So I will peel the onion like bit by bit. So there is actually a 4S approach. So from the strategy angle, also there are different layer of strategy, right? So there is the top management, the CXO level of strategy, where it will involve R&D team, product marketing, product development, marketing, sales, operation. That is a very high level of strategy, correct? And then when it cascade down, then you have your marketing team with a marketing strategy and the sales having their sales strategy. So in this way, you have to synchronize the sales and marketing as holistic because marketing sets the
No, I was
direction.
not speaking about sales and marketing. I mean, I say, for example, let's talk Dyson. Dyson could be a client of you. You know Dyson? Dyson is very upmarket, right?
Yeah.
You know Dyson product?
Yep.
Dyson 10, 20 years ago moved from collecting dust, into hair dryer, right?
Yeah.
So how do you hype up a salesperson who was always working for Dyson in cleaning devices, right? For me, Dyson, I lived in the UK, was a cleaning company, yeah? And suddenly, 5, 10 years ago, you see everywhere Dyson hair dryer, and they are market very expensive in shopping center, right? Um, yeah. So how do you really not strategic, but how do I take a salesperson and say this is a new product? I want you to be convinced about this product. You have to sell now this new product. You don't know, you don't understand. How do I do that?
Okay, so if you ask me, still holistically has to fall under strategy. So the
Okay.
management have to have a strategy for
Yeah.
motivation, for growth, and if they need, they actually may have to even hire a totally new sales team if the
Okay.
mindset doesn't change. So that is strategy. And of course, you mentioned about a handful of different models. What the sales team could do is to work closely with the marketing and even the R&D to be very explicit. What are the model differences? So if the model could be just as simple as the size of the phone or the weight of the handphone, maybe functionality, the camera specification. So the salespeople must be equipped actually to be able to articulate that delta of 1,000. Or it could be just simple, like just there are customers who just want to buy new model. They do not really want to care about what is new. There are such innovative buyers. But then you
Yeah,
still have
you're
to
right. I mean,
articulate.
there are buyers, they always wanted the latest one, right? You're right on that.
Yes, and
So they have to tickle.
honestly,
You're right.
the
Yeah,
phone features won't differ very much, honestly.
you're right.
They won't, because only you use WhatsApp, you use your smartphone function, you do a little bit. Even the download of all the apps are actually, it's already like fundamental, right? So what else could it be?
Yeah.
Unless the camera, like, have able to follow you, now you have those mobile cam for vlog, right? If you tell me your camera now can do this, of course, it will save me another $1,000 to buy a separate device. Your memory card has got much more storage, for example. Those are the things that the phone company has to explore. What are the new features and the delta against the competition? So that's why in the sales process, if the strategy is not right, it's not about the salespeople's capability or mindset. So there's also a lot more which we're not going to discuss in detail, like the product and the R&D, the pace of go-to-market strategy, and also the broad stroke of the branding and the marketing, right? They all translate to, at the end of the day, sales team is very straightforward. KPI is bring the dollar in. So it's not so straightforward because sometimes the salespeople have no control of what's going on top in the organization, let alone the economy, things that they cannot control. Yeah.
So when you
So
transform the sales and marketing, I mean, you speak about different teams, right? Sales, marketing, operations, right? Which I guess more in an agile way nowadays have to work together, right?
yeah.
Instead of being siloed. So how do you transform the teams, or what kind of achievements or outcomes they have with your methodology?
So transform would be, in my opinion, because as I talk more and more in my last 5 years of my entrepreneurship journey, working with individual sales, including high-performing sales, right? And of course, teams from different industry, from health tech to manufacturing and sustainability. The transformation need not be something that is too glaring. It could be as simple as, do they actually have a go-to-market system? So what I do in transforming from where they are now is to give them a very systematic, templatized kind of a approach where the whole team are unified in terms of how they communicate internally. Everybody is on the same page, number one. Number two is that they have to be more aware of how they manage themselves, which is the second S. Strategy we covered. The self part is how they optimize their time. If they have the same hour, are going to touch base with a higher net worth customer, higher deal order compared to the smaller one. So they have to rethink and very sensitive to every hour that they use their time. And of course, the other one is the branding, right? So a lot of people have underestimated that they have big brands like the tech giants, whether you're IBM, HP. At the end of the day, it's always the salesperson that's at the front line who is actually carrying the message and carrying the brand, representing the solution. And even the technology side, of course, is more complex. You have your pre-sales team, you have your partners, all must be like that is the transforming the way they are more aware of thinking beyond themselves and be more customer centric. So the second S is managing themselves first. And of course, third one is actually the system. So you and I, we deal with bigger companies or complex, and even a smaller one. There's a tendency for them to use a standard presentation slides and then just say out the product and features, which even you go to the handphone store, right? They would say the same thing, regardless of where you are. If you have a old grandmother coming to buy the phone, I think the sales process has to be a bit different, right? You probably be selling the intuition of the GUI instead of telling them complex features. So this is where you could have to prepare in your presentation approach, whether it is verbal, it is your official B2B presentation in a meeting room with the board members. It's how you tailor to the different stakeholders with the same data, but you tweak it for finance, for operation, R&D, sales and marketing team, including the CXO, CFO. You have to be able to position the outcome. And of course, the next part is complex account management if they are going to complex sales. Is that sometimes I was told that they go to a meeting, especially now it's kickoff, right? Sales kickoff. They have to present their a complex account plan. And sometimes the team may think that I just need to pacify or please the management in a 2-hour presentation. But following through that entire account plan, penetrating them as well as deep diving to get more projects inside a major account is something that they have to really own it. So that's the outer circle. Then, of course, inner circle is what you and I are very passionate, right? The customer experience, the customer journey, how we communicate, even going networking, building rapport, getting trust, or asking good questions. And then, of course, the customer experience when the way you talk to them, are you concerned about them, or you're just more interested in selling and pushing the product? So that transformation actually is from the mind to the action, where they could actually concretely see themselves progressing. Where in the past, most of my customers say, yes, they have been doing sales, but they are not aware of the subtlety, the nuances so explicitly, even customer relationship, right? Is that how do they table a whole 2025 plan from January to December and make sure that their 1,000 customers or 10,000 customers are well taken care of touch point, because there's a tendency that when we close a deal, we just forget those who have supported us. So there's a CRM system. We're not talking about just the tool. The tool can say that I write an email, but does the customer feel that you know their problem? You can identify their problem, and these are the key important human touch point beyond tools. So that is what I consider incremental transformation. The tool would be digital transformation, which in this case you have your CRM now, the big guys like Salesforce,
When we
etc.
talk about CRM, sorry to
Yeah,
interrupt you. When we talk about CRM, I think it's also important from our methodology. I mean, sales has to hand over to somebody, right? I mean,
yeah,
sales should sell. That means from a certain point in the journey, they have to hand over to
yeah,
service teams, to product
yes.
teams, to delivery teams, to customer service teams, right? I mean, we have to define very well. In a key account situation, B2B is maybe different, but in other situations, sales often is stretched into maintenance areas, which I personally disagree, right? I think I don't know how you see it, but when we look at a CRM journey or a customer journey, there must be a point where sales hands over to operations or something. Or how do you see that?
Okay, so you are right. But however, I just want to caution that handover cannot mean that the team is totally detached. So
Okay.
you still have to have your high level touch point. So of course, in some industry, they have this term called customer success. So customer success will help the account to manage any challenges in the deployment phase or after they use the system. So these are talking about like maybe especially the more complex one, like the banks, for example, right? Or big manufacturing multinational touch points where the global impact cascade down through every one of the department. Then customer success team is supposed to do that. But as a sales, you also need to know when customer do not see you as giving them attention, it will affect the customer journey. So you have to be strategic in the sense that you need to know how many accounts or customer you have in hand, whether you touch point with them once a quarter, once a year. And how do you touch point with them? Is it over a meal, a text, a WhatsApp, or a Zoom call? So that is why I see I do not advise to be totally hands-off, number one. Number two is from CXO level, do not think that your sales guy is enough, because when they move on to another competitor, if you do not have high touch at the senior level, then things may shake for major account as well.
Mm, understand, understand. So I understand today from our podcast. First, I'm very surprised, honestly, that sales is a very, very strategic topic. I mean, you have to plan a lot. You have to bring a lot of teams together, right? You have to look at a market, at a competitor. You have before you even just give your salesperson a product. You have to really figure everything out, the touch points, the competitors, the angle, how to approach the market. Is it a high profile sale? Is it a low profile sale? Is it a mass sale? And so on. And then sales comes in, right? And I think something you said very beautifully is you also need the right sales team, right? It's not only the product. I was just thinking about probably most of the Dyson guys who sold in the 80s these cleaning devices, they were bold. So how can they sell hairdressers, right? In the 90s or 2000s. So they probably had a completely new sales team because I can imagine these were all bold old guys running around selling cleaning devices. Now with a hairdresser, you need a completely new sales team because they don't sell from these guys, right? Um, and the orchestra methodology from you is bringing that all together, but starting with a strategic approach. Is that right?
Yeah, so strategy and then manage yourself, which is the second S, which is self, right? And the next one
Yes.
is come up with a repeatable system of how you communicate, structure the sales call. And
Mm,
then when you go into the field, which is the communication, the last C, which is service, it is so dynamic. Like today, I don't know what we are going to talk or how the talk is going to evolve, right? You cannot scope, you cannot script your sales call per se, because you really don't know how the other party is going to react. But you need to be able to have that the bullet points, and you have to have your equipment and your thinking process all mapped out so that when you go for the commercial warfare, you know what tools and weapons. And that's where sales is so fun as well as difficult because you know how it goes, right?
sure,
It's
sure.
not e-commerce is a lot easier because you can control the website, you can control your sales funnel flow. But when you deal with human, they are so interesting. So you cannot predict. There's no way, but you can do scenario planning. If they reject you, if they say this, you can map it in your mind. And so your thinking on the feet is extremely important. So that's why we were deliberating and we were finding it very intriguing. Why is it you have marketing degree, you don't have a sales degree? Because
Mhm,
this how do you mark a sales paper when you're talking about human interface?
mhm,
Unless you scope out as an oral interview to give your certificate of accreditation of a professional sales. So of course, Sales Symphony, I give my certification.
mhm.
And again, the real test is in the field. The real person who will give you the cert is when you close the deal, right?
Yes.
So
So you prepare the company and the people for the challenges, right? It's not that you have a full blueprint, you have
no.
pointers, but they face challenges and they have to be flexible. Yeah?
Yeah. So I believe the methodology is giving them the concept, be able to grasp. It's just like a Lego, right? You know that this piece is a door. When you need to build a house, you know where to fix the door. And the square and the circle, whatever Lego set you have, you just know that they are available. You put the tools inside, you have the building blocks. And
Mm,
that is where we think we could equip, and these are the things inverted comma we can control to some extent. The worst is when you go for a sales call, totally haphazard. The customer is just leading you by the nose, telling you things about your competitor that you may not even know, or telling things that are untrue. And that mark your whole decision-making process, how to structure the deal.
mm.
And that to me is shortchanging ourselves, that we should never leave vulnerability in our back door or front door.
That's great. Thank you so much. So to wrap up, have a strategy and sales, but be prepared for every customer. So thank you very much, Christina, for being on the show today. And we will have your contact details in the podcast and YouTube channel. Thank you.
Okay, so go to the solutions segment, and if you want to know how to really increase our chances of winning. So I wish everybody all the best, year on year, growth every year.
Okay,
Thank you,
that's great.
Carsten.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.